Father, you indeed are worthy. And Jesus Christ, you are worthy. You are the worthy Lamb who sits on the throne, who died in our place, a pleasing sacrifice to the Father. Father, as we come to you right now, at your feet, we pray, we desire that we may be pleasing to you as we worship, as we continue to worship through the study of your word. I pray that as we study your word, we'll be moved to obey you, to follow you. That is our desire. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, today's message is entitled Pleasing God. And our passage is Genesis chapter 8, verse 20 to 22. And it says, Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean animal and every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. The Lord smelled the soothing aroma, and the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth, and I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. You know, 2 weeks ago, the last time I spoke, we saw what happened, right? We saw the ark now resting on Mount Ararat. And here God told, and we saw Moses, we saw Noah inside the ark. He was there for more than a month. There was no more flood. It stopped raining. And he was just there in the ark, waiting for God to speak. And then we saw God spoke, and God said that, okay, Noah, you may now leave the ark with the animals. Now, I was trying to imagine, no? If I was Noah and I stepped out of the ark after 1 year and 11 days in the ark, I wonder how I would feel. I feel weird. Would you? I mean, there would be mixed emotions for Noah as he stepped out of the ark. And there would be, on the one hand, joy and happiness because God has saved me. Right? Me and my family, He saved. And I'd be happy about that. But on the other hand, I'd be sad because as I step out the ark, I would see the desolation. I would see the darkness, the tragedy that gripped the land. There would be basically no living being, no animals, no human being there. And if there's any remnant, it will be skeletons all over. It's a different picture that we have, that when he stepped out of the ark, the sun is smiling, the birds were singing, and it's all green and lush. But no, when he stepped out the ark, he saw the destruction of the whole world. And again, if I was there, I would remember my cousins. I would remember my friends. I would remember my aunts, my uncles, who are now all dead. Yes, on the one hand, I'm happy. On the other hand, there might be a certain sense of sadness there. But, you know, if I was there, I don't think that the ride, the 1 year and 11 days more or less, was a handy dandy. I think it's one of the scariest moments. Have you been in the middle of a typhoon? I remember a sister of mine who was in the middle of a hurricane. And she had to hide herself inside a comfort room in her room. Because it was so strong, if I'm not mistaken, her apartment at that time was kind of messed up. The roar, the wind, the rains. And when she stepped out, her unit was all messed up. It was a traumatic experience. And that probably lasted for a couple of hours or so. But this lasted for a long, long time. And you know, traumatic experience. I remember before I went to Turkey. And when I was in Turkey, obviously there are a couple of things that I need to do. One is drink a Turkish coffee. Apparently, the Turkish coffee pala. When you drink it, after you drink it, may manghuhula. They would read the grain. And when you drank the Turkish coffee, after that, the graduates of coffee, the girl will tell you your horoscope, your future. It's like fortune telling after drinking a coffee. So I tried that. But the other thing I did was I tried a Turkish massage. Obviously, you're in Turkey, try the Turkish massage. And indeed, I tried the Turkish massage. I went to a supposedly famous Turkish massage. The place was really nice, really old, very antique. It's been there for over 100 or maybe 200 years or so. And there, the guy that was going to be my masseuse was huge. Huge. Big guy with a mustache, and it's like the classic curly. Oh. And there he would put you in a slab of marble, and he would massage you, and you're kind of naked there, and he would slide you. He would slide me one side, another. He would literally, I would slide, shh, like, shh. All right, fine. What I found weird in that Turkish massage is he'll give you a bath. He'll shower you. Everything's on me. Then he would put cold water, hot water. Oh. But I said, no, I want the full. I will not complain. I want a full massage. I want to know what a genuine Turkish massage is. Then he started massaging me. I swear to you, I was tortured. Really, I was. He was like beating me. And my point is, I want to say, can you soften it? But no. I want to prove, no, I can handle this, Bobby. I can handle. And he was really, I felt I was really tortured. And it feels like it will never end. It will never end. It will never end. It was so painful. I told myself after this, I'll not tip him. No way will I tip him. He tortured me. And I'll tip him? No way. So good. I dressed up after. It was it felt like 4 hours of torture. But it was probably an hour. I really felt torture. So I said, I'll not tip him. So I stepped out. It was kind of winter eh. So walang tao. It was in a secluded place. Lo and behold, he was outside waiting for his tip. So, I can't do anything. I had to tip him. Went to the room, told my wife the experience. You wouldn't believe it. Every night I had nightmares. No, it was that bad. At night, I'm going, no, really? What an experience! That is the Turkish bath experience. And I told this to my friend. And he said, oh, Bob, I don't believe you. I said, believe me. I have a friend in Turkey. I'll email him. He emailed. And he came back. Oh, it's true. It's true. I was really beaten up. And I had it, 3-4 nights? I would wake up.
Never again.
Yeah, never an original. Or if ever at a slow down. At night, I would wake up scared. If I was still being tortured. It was really an ordeal. And I was telling myself, in fact, I had a convoluted thinking na, no, I'll stand up for the Filipino. I will not say, slow down. We Filipinos, we're manly. We can handle this. Wrong. But the point being is, I could imagine Noah having that experience. With that thinking, will this ever happen again? Will this, people who are rape victims, they're traumatized. Abuse kids, abuse people, tortured people. They're traumatized. Typical are people who came from war, veterans of war. They become cuckoo. Why? Because they're traumatized by their experience. And I wouldn't be surprised. Because remember, as I mentioned, in the ark, God did not speak. He was silent. And Noah could have thought, has God forgotten me? And as I mentioned last time, God never forgets. God always works, even if you do not see His work, His handiwork. The fact that you don't see Him working does not mean He is not. And the good thing is, He is always working for our good. So here we see Noah stepping out of the ark, happy. It's like us entering our house and all of a sudden there's a news, big earthquake coming. Anyone felt the earthquake recently? I felt the earthquake. You didn't feel the earthquake? Me and Roy were in the restaurant. We tried for the first time 4 Seasons. I told Roy, I don't eat them, mahal-mahal. But she convinced me. We looked, we ate. Then while eating, it was shaking. I wanted to run out of the restaurant. The problem is they might really get mad. I didn't pay the bill. So what's this? How can I recognize I want to run because there's an earthquake? But no one was running. But the person beside us, beside our table, was looking at us. Parang, what shall we do? Let's not pay the bill. Let's just run. But no, I said, okay, calm down. Okay, I was thinking of a plan. But imagine that if we know that there's an earthquake coming tomorrow and everybody goes in the house and there comes the earthquake, and after the earthquake you step out of the house, everybody's dead. You tried calling the cell phones of your friends, nothing. Electricity is down, landline is down, everything is down, everything is flat and annihilated. It's annihilation. It's as if you were in a house in Nagasaki when the first atomic bomb exploded, and when you step out of the house, you're the only one existing. Everybody was flattened out. That's what happened here. There was a great catastrophe, a catastrophe that is not seen by anyone ever or since, that killed not only 1/10 but the whole mankind. And now he steps out. What was Noah feeling? What will Noah do? And we saw last time in chapter 8 verse 1, and God remembered Noah. And that's no surprise, we said. Why? Because God never forgets. But what makes our passage interesting is that not that God does not, that God remembers, but it's because Noah remembered. Noah remembered God. That God remembered is no surprise, but that Noah remembered, well, that's interesting. Because you and I know we have this propensity, right, of forgetting things, of leaving things. I'm notoriously known to forget birthdays. I forget the birthday of people, birthday of my mom, especially when I was still young. My sister would call me in the club, Bobby, where are you? Why? It's mom's birthday, we're eating out. mom's birthday. I mean, I forget a lot of things. I remember when I was still single, me and Roy were out, and all of a sudden I got a message like, "Where are you?" So, why? I was supposed to pick my mom up at the airport. Oh man, I forgot. And we tend to forget a lot of things, and that's the problem. And the sad part is, even in our Christian life, we tend to forget God a lot. And when I was meditating on this, it's not that we forgot God, but the reality is that we are ungrateful to God. A lot of people forget God simply because they are really ungrateful. In growing up, I studied in the province, and I remember every year our school would ask donations from my parents. My parents naman would gladly donate some instruments. I remember the fountain, the water spout in our school in the province has my name, the plaque there with my name. Hopefully, I wonder if they destroyed it already. And I remember when I was already working, I wanted to set a meeting with the nuns. And guess what? Despite all the donations that my parents did, in fact, the land there was donated by my grandmother, right? Canosa. And there was a plaque there. But when I requested a meeting with them, they didn't want to give me a meeting. I said, wow, what an ungrateful bunch. and that's the same with God. We forget God. Why? Because I think we're ungrateful. And then you might tell me, but Bob, I don't really forget God. But the symptoms are what? Do you always pray to Him? Do you really pray and communicate with God every day? Or do you forget Him? Do you read your Bible every single day? Or do you forget Him? A lot of times we worry a lot. When we worry, that's a sign that we have forgotten the promises of God. And sometimes we don't trust and rely on God. Therefore what? We forget that He is Lord. So yes, you might not admit that you forget God, but your behaviors of not praying, of worrying, of not trusting, is forgetting God for who He is, for what He has done. And some people, they forget God in a lot of ways. In the mountaintops of their life, they forget God. In the valleys, they forget God. And we are not to forget our God, no matter what happens. Go to Deuteronomy, please. Deuteronomy chapter 8. There's some people, if you think of it, some people who are poor, having a hard time, probably they would be madasalin. They would try to go to church, they would try to serve. But when things starts improving in life, what happens? All of a sudden, they forget God. When things are down, they always do all the right stuff. But when things are up, they forget God. They become too busy for church. They become too busy for praying. They become too busy for serving God. And in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 10, I read, "When you have eaten and are satisfied, you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land which He has given you. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments and his ordinances and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. Otherwise, when you have eaten and are satisfied, and have built good houses and live in them, and when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and gold multiply, and all that you have multiplied, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord, your God, who brought you out from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. There's some people who are like that, and God says, don't forget. Some people, they would love to serve their relatives. Why? I'm poor, he or she is rich. I will serve, I'll serve, I'll serve. But the moment I become rich and she becomes or he becomes poor, guess what? I'll not serve him anymore. They forget, they become ungrateful. But the Bible says, when you're up, remember who brought you up. Remember who raised you up. And a lot of people forget. Once success comes in, God goes out. Other people naman, reverse. When they're down, God goes out. They were faithful in the church. They serve in the church. But when business turns bad, when they lose their job, when their relationship crumbles, when things becomes a struggle, when he or she is now in the desert, guess what? They run away from God. They forget God. They blame God. They rebel God. They rebel against God, and they forget and they turn away from God. So it doesn't matter. We are prone to forget God. It doesn't matter if you're up or down. And the point is, we should not. Go to Psalm 77. Please. Psalm 77, verse 1 says, my voice rises to God, and I will cry aloud. My voice rises to God, and he will hear me. In the day of my trouble, I sought the Lord. In the night, my hand was stretched out without weariness. My soul refused to be comforted. When I remember God, then I am disturbed. When I sigh, then my spirit grows faint. Verse 4. You have held my eyelids open, and I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I've considered the days of old, the years of long ago. I will remember my songs in the night. I will meditate with my heart, and my spirit ponders. Will the Lord reject forever? And will he never be favorable again? Has his loving kindness ceased forever? Has his promise come to an end forever? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Or has he in anger withdrawn his compassion? Then I said, it is my grief that the right hand of the Most High has changed. I shall remember the deeds of the Lord. Surely I will remember your wonders of old. I will meditate on all your work and muse on your deeds. Your ways, O God, is holy. What God is great like our God? You are the God who works wonders. You have made known your strength and among people. You have your powers redeemed your people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Here the psalmist was wondering, where is God? What happened to God? Has he withdrawn his favor to me? Why is everything crumbling? And he concluded that, no, I have to remember that I have a faithful God. That's why in Psalm 30 verse 7, it says, 2 things I ask of you. Do not refuse me before I die. Verse 8, keep deceptions and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is my portion. that I not be full and deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or that I not be in want and steal and profane the name of my God. So here we see Noah in the middle of confusion, in the middle of destruction and death. What does he do? He remembers God and builds an altar. He did not go into depression. He did not go into anger. He did not forget God. He remembered God and built an altar. And we are to remember God also in all circumstances. In trials, tribulation, success, failures, in times of joy, in times of misery. Genesis 8:20 says, Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took every clean animal and every clean birds and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Imagine this, we're now out of the ark with a limited number of animals. And we are now to procreate and refill the land. What would be the thing that you would want to do? If you were in the middle of the desert, right? With a liter of water, what would you do? Will you shower using that water? Totally not. You would not waste valuable resources. Yet here, Noah was about to do that. Now try to imagine what the other family members is saying. Dad, we have 100 animals left, and you want to sacrifice some of them? Let's be practical here, Dad. We have to repopulate the world, and we have to continually eat. This is limited resources that we need to handle properly. Let's not waste it. God will understand our situation. We're now kind of down and out. Before the flood, yes, we're rich. We had a lot of animals. Some people said that Noah was in fact rich. We had a lot of animals. We have a lot of herds. But now, Lord, Dad, our resources is very, very limited. Let's not waste it. Let's not waste it sacrificing and worshiping God. God naman knows our heart's intent. He knows where our heart really is. Go to Matthew chapter 26, please. Matthew chapter 26, verse 6 says, Now when Jesus was in Bethany, at the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster of veil of very costly perfumes, and she poured it on his head as he reclined at the table. That's very common at that time. The guest, the head of guests, the most prominent guest, would get poured an oil, and here this is happening again. It's an alabaster. Now, a woman came with an alabaster veil. So this is a very expensive container. Normally, that container is normally cracked opening. Once you open it, you really have to consume it. A very costly perfume. Verse 8. And the disciples were indignant when they saw this and said, Why this waste? For this perfume might have been sold for a high price and the money be given to the poor. But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, Why do you bother this woman? For she has done a good deed to me. For you always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. For when she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be spoken of in memory of her. People were saying, why waste? The apostle saying, why are you wasting your money and putting that to Jesus? Why are you wasting that? We could have used it for a better purpose and probably sell it and use the money to help the poor. You can have all the reasons in the world for not serving God, for not investing in God. But I submit, we have to realize this. Nothing is wasted if it's given to God. No one could ever say, I gave too much. You can give your time, you can give your money, you can give your talent. Anything that you give to God is not a waste. In fact, there's no such thing as I gave too much. In fact, that's the best thing that you can do. The best thing that you can do with your talent is offer it to God. The best thing that you do with your money, give it to God. The best thing that you can do with your time is spend it with God. Nothing given to God, no matter how small, no matter how big, is wasted resource. In fact, that is the best investment, wherein the returns is eternal. Yet a lot of times we want to invest our resources in temporal, in securing our security here on earth, instead of securing our security for all eternity, for eternal rewards. That's why it's never a waste when one decides to give his all to God, to give his very life to Him. That is the best decision of your life. Whenever you give something to God, it's the best thing that you've done. There's no other thing that your resources could have pleased God more. So yes, the world might say, oh, it's a waste. Why did you spoil that perfume on Jesus? Noah, why did you waste so much on that offering? It's not a waste. It's the best investment. And what did Noah do? He built an altar, a high place. Realize this. This sacrifice was a lavish sacrifice. This is no small thing. And he built an altar. Because he will make a big sacrifice, that altar must have been huge to accommodate it. And as he was building now this altar, try to imagine what the family members were doing. By the way, the word altar never existed. This was the first usage of the word altar. So, as he was building the altar, try to imagine, Dad, what are you building? An altar. What's an altar? Where we will make the sacrifice to God. If I was a family member, I'd say, another build. The last time we built something, it took us 120 years. And there was a storm. You want us to build again? An altar naman? How long, Dad, will this take? Another 120? I don't know. I'm just saying, what were they thinking? Because this is the next build after what they have built. But here, they built it. They built the altar. To what? To make a burnt offering. A burnt offering. A whole burnt offering. Normally, if there's a burnt offering, you could, so this is the animal. You get a part and you eat it. Other part, you would offer it. Another type of burnt offering is, you get a part, you eat it. You get another part, you give it to the priest for him to eat. And you get the remaining part and offer it. But a whole burnt offering is, the whole part is offered to God. That's a whole burnt offering. It's an offering that is complete, consummate, total. It was everything. And did you catch the word there? Every clean animal and every clean bird. That, okay, let's do an offering. One sheep. No. Every clean animal and every clean bird. What am I saying? This was a generous offering. This is a lavish offering. It is very, very generous, presented freely out of thanksgiving to God for sparing their life. A spontaneous celebration that resulted in their salvation. During that time, there was this myth also going on that because there's a Gilgamesh epic, there was a flood also. People, the whole world died, and there was an offering to the gods. The belief at that time was when they made an offering to God, that offering was the food of the gods. So when they offer to God, it's like, sa Chinese, di ba? They make offerings of mga sandwiches, blah, blah. And they believe, at least, that, you know, now not so, but the belief is, it's the food for the God, para may makain ng mga gods nila, right? That was really the belief then. And the Gilgamesh epic, it was said there that the gods were so hungry that they were like flies swarming the sacrifice. But not our God. Our God was just receiving. Our God doesn't get hungry. This offering was not to feed God. This offering was an offering of thanks to God. He was so thankful that he said one sheep was not enough. Every clean animal and every clean bird I will offer to him who sits on the throne. Total, complete. I will eat nothing. It will be offered all to him. It is an attitude of gratitude that Noah was showing. And sometimes we forget that. In fact, I notice the more we have, the more we receive, the more we forget, the more we are ungrateful. Try to imagine if you're in school or in the office, your friend offers you to treat you for lunch. Where? At your favorite restaurant, which you could not afford. Would you be thankful? Totally. Or all of a sudden, your office mate says, "Uy, Rafael, I have a free ticket to Japan with hotel. Here, have it." Would you be happy? Rafael? Yeah, totally, right? Or if you had a free ticket to Celine Gomez, you wanted to watch Celine Gomez. Let's say she's coming, right? Oh no, she came. And you always wanted to watch the calls, and then all of a sudden, your friend in school said, "Hey, Bettina, I have an extra ticket for Miley Cyrus. Here." Wouldn't you be happy? Thankful? Yes, you would. But I realize that's one-off. A friend takes you out for lunch. You're so thankful. You're so grateful. But to the parents that feed you every day, you're not. Who feeds you breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're not. You're abroad, you have no place to stay, and a stranger said, "No, you can have a room in my house for a week." You're so grateful. You say, I'm indebted to you for letting me stay for 1 week in your house and I had nothing. Yet you go back to your home in the Philippines and live with your folks for a year or 2 or 10 years, and you're not grateful. We tend to take for granted a lot of things that God has done for us. We tend to forget the faithfulness of God, thus forget to thank Him. We only thank God if our prayers are answered. If all of a sudden something happened which is unexpected, you got engaged, you closed a deal, you got promoted. But on things that really matters, that you have food, that you have clothing, that you have a roof over your head, you have a place to sleep, that you have a car, that you have a salary, that you're alive, that you have been saved, that we are able to worship here today. We take this for granted. I remember I had the privilege of ministering in Brunei, and I remember that place was in Brunei, the capital. You're really not allowed to worship. So our worship service there was kind of night, and the people would come via one vehicle, hatid sundo. Hindi pwede madaming vehicle, because they'll get suspicious. Why is there many cars? Is there a party here? And if it happens regularly, they'll be caught. And they couldn't worship. I remember our music ministry, their music ministry was a mobile phone playing the music, and we would sing. Then we were just in the sala. How many were there? 50 or 80. And I gave the message, and I took a picture sa labas, kasi doon sa Brunei, they leave their mga sapatos sa labas. Ang daming sapatos sa labas. And it was parang hideout because it was dark. I remember, it was a dark night. The room was padlocked. We had to go up. We had to unlock it. Then we entered. Then we had to wait. And normally those people, when they worship, man, they worship wholeheartedly. They really, really want to worship God. And we take it for granted, right? That we can sing to Him, listen to His word. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says, "In everything give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." In everything. The word everything there is ambiguous in Greek. It could mean either everything or it could mean all times. So I take it, Paul meant in everything and in all times, give thanks to God. Not only in everything, but always in all times, give thanks to God. And this is a command. Even when tragedy strikes us, we are to give thanks to God, because we know that in all things God works for good. As Romans 8 would say, as Genesis 50 would say, man intended it for good, for evil, but God intends it for good. In all things, give thanks. In all things, in all times, give thanks. There's this man who went to India as a tourist, middle class. His tourist guide was asking, where are you from? He said, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. Oh, then you must be rich. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just from Richmond. It's a place. Ah. Do you have your own house? Yes, I do. Oh, how big? Oh, our house is about 400 square meters. Oh, so big a house. You're a rich man. No, I'm not. I'm a middle class. Do you have a car? Yes, I have 2 cars. Oh, you're a rich man. You have cars. How many kids do you have? I have 4 kids. Do they all go to school? Yes. Oh, you're a rich man. No, I'm not. Whatever the guy says, no, the tourist guy said, no, you're a rich man. The guy said, no, I'm not. But in reality, he is. He just doesn't realize it. He doesn't realize that God has blessed them. Therefore, what? He does not thank God. I submit, if all of a sudden you're blind for 1 month, what would it feel the next day that you gain sight? You feel very blessed. Right? Try to imagine that you've been caught by the ISIS in Marawi and you're raped for 1 month. That's what happened in Marawi. They said some of the hostages are now pregnant. Yeah. And now, and you've been released. All of a sudden, you thank God. God, thank you for taking me out of that hellish place. My mother-in-law, who's sick, and I see her sick, very frail, and she has a hard time standing up. Right? If I was in her position for 1 month, the moment I feel my strength right now, I will thank God. The point is, the mere fact that we're not sick, the mere fact that we can worship, the mere fact that we can see, the mere fact we can hear, the mere fact we're not in Marawi being raped every day, is something to give thanks to. In all things, give thanks. And we just take it for granted. We have this drill with my family, and I share this in the car, and probably will do it again from here to New Manila. That's the time we normally do it. I said, okay, let's give thanks to God. Santino will start, Bettina will say, Bambino will say, Ro will say, I will say, then go back to Santino will say, Bambino will say, Bettina will, over and over. They thank for the gasoline, they thank for the car, they thank for the water, they thank for the electric, they thank for everything. After that, I tell you, trust me, if you're feeling depressed after that exercise, you feel so blessed. We just forget. We forget to thank God for what He has done. So here, Moses made an offering. Moses again. Noah made an offering. Moses was the author. For some reason, Noah made an offering. And verse 21 says, the Lord smelled the soothing aroma. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma. It is an expression of God's favor towards the sacrifice. You know, I realized something. God is aware of everything that you do. God looks and judges everything that we say and do and think. Psalm 15 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching the evil and the good. In Job 34 it says, for his eyes are upon the ways of man, and he sees all his steps. There is no darkness or deep shadow where the workers of iniquity may hide themselves. Jeremiah 23 verse 24 says, can a man hide himself in hiding places so I do not see him? Declares the Lord. Do I not feel the heavens and the earth? Declares the Lord. There's no denying, brothers and sisters, that God sees everything that you do, and He will take into account all our actions and thoughts. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil. That's Ecclesiastes 12 verse 14. Everything. The only question we need to ask is this. In your worship right now, is God pleased? For the last hour, for the last 24 hours, has God been pleased with what you have done, what you have said, what you have done or do? Is it a soothing aroma to God? You know, the Bible says, love without hypocrisy. Yes, you might be showing love, but it might be hypocritical love. Some people, they don't think that righteousness is a means of gain. What does it mean? You might be doing right, but to God it might be evil. You might be praying, but to God it is evil. You might be giving, and to God it is evil. Why? Because God looks at the heart. God sees every intent that we do. No amount of perfume can hide or cover up the stench of your sin. Your righteous deed is filthy rags. Obedience is better than sacrifice. To heed is better than the fat of ram. God sees us, our heart. And as Noah was offering this lavish, big sacrifice with God, to God, God is pleased. God is happy. And we need to find pleasure in knowing that our life is pleasing to God. Do you find pleasure in that? When you obey God's commandment, do you find pleasure that you make God smile? That is a pleasing aroma to God. When you make sacrifices, when you humble yourself, when you submit to your authorities, when you give up your rights, are you pleased knowing that your God is pleased? You might be here in our worship service, but are you really worshiping? Is this worship right now pleasing to God? Are you really worshiping Him who sits on the throne? For Noah, his sacrifice was a soothing aroma, lavish, grand, without reservation, wholehearted, a reflection of his gratitude and thanks to God. Again, I ask, is this present worship right now, your worship to God right now, pleasing to Him? Or are you wondering? Has God spoken to you right now? Is there a prodding that God is telling you right now that you should do right now at your seat? Is there a sin that you have been holding, that God has revealed to you right now. That you need to confess, that you need to reconcile, that you need to forgive, that you need to do this or that. You might be singing here, you might be here, you might be worshiping, but if you are not giving your all to Him, if you're not listening to the proddings of God in your life of what you should do, better not worship, because it is not pleasing to Him. Malachi said, right? Get out of this place. Don't think I need you here. Because genuine worship is being offered to me all over the earth. It is our privilege to worship Him. And a lot of people will excuse to continuing their sin by saying, Bob, I'll pray about it. No, I remember a friend of mine was saying something to me, and I know what that person was doing was wrong. I said, no, you should stop that. You should do this instead. And that person told me, okay, Bob, I'll pray about it. No. Don't pray about it. Obey it. We should stop making excuses of not obeying God, and we just simply need to do it. When we have that attitude of total surrender to God and worship, then our worship is a soothing aroma to God. For you are saying to Him, Lord, you are my all. Our worship, this worship, is meant for you to respond to God. If you're here just to listen, then get a good, tape on how to improve life. But if you want to worship God, you sit there and ask Him, Lord, what do you want to happen to me? Speak to me through your word, and I will respond. And that, my Lord, is my worship, totally undivided, holy to you. And God says, I am pleased. Imagine this, Noah stepping out of the ark, full of death and desolation around him, and slaughtering every animal clean and birds, building it up without reservation, without hesitation, wholehearted, there offering it to God. And as it burns, showing his gratitude for God saving him. And as that fire and as the smoke burns, you see God in the heavens, shining upon Moses and his offering in the midst of death, pleased with the aroma, pleased with his heart, pleased with his sacrifice offered to him, and he's smiling, accepting that pleasing aroma. We can be that person today, this moment. If you choose to do whatever God is prodding you to do, don't allow the devil to deceive you one more moment in delaying the obedience that he desires from you. It's a deception. The moment God convicts you is the moment He expects you to obey. Not a second longer. And what does God promise? And the Lord said, going back to Genesis chapter 8, to Himself, I will never again curse the ground on the account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth, and I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. You know, it's one thing for man to say that I will never, ever, ever. It's another thing for God to say it, right? If I say, Oh, son, trust me, I'll never eat another pork meat again. Trust me. I went to the hospital, I got sick, I got bypass, I'll never eat. Give it 6 months, you see me eating pork again. Right? Or people would say, oh, that person, he did that, I'll never do that. Then later he'll be doing it. My favorite. Oh, I said, son, you did this, you did that. Oh, Dad, I'll never do it again. I'll never do it. I promise you, I'll never, ever. Morning and evening. Oh, you done it again. It's one thing for us to say, I'll never. It's another thing for God to say, I'll never. Because man's never is ludicrous. It means, yeah, trust me, I'll do it again. Remember what Peter said? Even if I have to die with you, Lord, I will never disown you. Never, ever, ever disown you. God said, no. By the time the crow crows, you would have denied me 3 times. Never is never. It's never true when man says never. But when God says never, mark my word, that means never. The Bible says, never will I leave you. Never, ever will I forsake. That's 3 nevers. Ang ibig sabihin nun, talagang never is what that means. And this is the rub. This is what makes God great. If you go to Genesis, take note of this. Genesis chapter 8, verse 20. The Lord smelled the soothing aroma, and the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. For the intent. What's amazing, and this is the rub, right? What is amazing is this. It's one thing for me to be nice to a person who is nice to me. You know, there in America, this is it has happened more often. Filipino caregiver takes care of an old rich lady. The lady dies, she gets inherited. A house, a car. In 1990s, there's a Filipina yaya of this girl. She was the yaya of the girl for 20 years before she died. When she died, the girl got 30 million. Oh, what a good investment, no? 20 years, 30 million. And that's one thing. But what makes our God great is this. In verse 20, I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man is evil from his youth. He made a promise not to destroy despite the fact that he knows man will continue to sin. The word for there means even though he will continue, I will not judge him. I will not exercise. But the Bible tells us in Psalm that we were born in iniquity, and in sin my mother conceived me. We are a sinful bunch. No one is righteous, not even one. No one seeks after God. No one understands. All has gone astray. In Romans 3:10. It is this type of people that God made a promise. He's making a promise to a child whom he knows will be disobedient to him again and again and again and again. That's why he made a promise not to Noah. If you note, he made a promise to whom? To himself. Because the promise does not hinge on Noah. It hinged on the character of God. And that is comforting to Noah. Imagine if God said, okay, Noah, I will never destroy the world again. And I will only keep this promise if you don't continue sinning. O de patay, another flood. Right? There's no escaping. But God said, I will make this promise to myself that even though you keep on sinning, I will. In spite of what you have done, I will not judge it this way again. It's almost like me telling my sons or my kids, I will never belt you again. Even if you disobey me, knowing that you will, I will not do that again. And I make that promise to myself. In fact, sabi niya in verse 22, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Instead of destruction, earth will be blessed with regularity, predictability. What an awesome God we have. What an awesome God. And the very first act of Noah exiting the ark was to worship God totally. And God was pleased. Psalm 51 says, for you do not delight in sacrifice, otherwise I would have given. You are not pleased with burnt offerings. The sacrifice of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. O God, you will not despise. Pleasing God, my friends, is a privilege. It is the greatest privilege of any human being. When Paul was in Judaism, he thought he was pleasing God. He was born a Jew of a Jew, a tribe of Benjamin, circumcised on the 8th day. A Pharisee. If you look at all of that, it was meant to be pleasing to God, but he realized all of this is what? A loss. Therefore what? 2 Corinthians 5:9. Therefore also we have our ambition, whether at home or absent, to be pleasing to Him. That is what is important. Whether at home or absent, we are to be pleasing to Him. I have a question. Is that your goal? Noah, when he stepped out of the ark, he did not care if his resources are limited. He did not care what his family would say. He will make an offering that is pleasing to God, and God was pleased. Paul in the New Testament says this. This is our ambition, to be pleasing to Him alone. Is that your goal? If you have only one goal in life, if there's only one take that you have to have this morning, is this: be pleasing to Him. Make that your life's goal. Your every action. And I was just talking to my wife last night about certain matters, and we were not sure what the decision is, if this thing is right or wrong. I told my wife this. Was God pleased? Will God be pleased? If you keep that simple principle to heart, you will not go astray. And your life will be a pleasing aroma to God. Thus says the Lord. Amen. for our last song.